How do you pronounce your name, Maureen? Gray or Guray?
Gulay po. Gulay. Like gulay with R.
Pwede naman Gray eh. Gray.
Parang gray.
Silent U.
uh,
Okay, game.
Yeah. Okay, so this is just like some sort of like mind map. Yeah, going back to the idea. So yeah, it's about yung malunggay niya and like just detailing the stuff required to maintain the malunggay, like the irrigation, yung drainage. For compost, we just decided to stick with vermicompost. Later it'll make sense. Oh wait. Okay, so vermicompost because you can do it indoors and with like limited space. And yeah, for the harvest, we also decided to add yung, besides the leaves, the seeds also, because one of the products you can produce with malunggay seeds is yung ano, you can use seeds as filter. Yeah, you can use malunggay seeds as filter for water, like filtering water. So yeah, and since it has something to do with hindi pa wait.
sorry.
So since it has something to do with water, we decided that we kind of realized that another thing that commuters have to confront is flooding in Manila. So we want to do something that might address or help mitigate flooding. So yeah, next. So yeah, as said earlier, malunggay can be used to filter water since the proteins or like the what's the term? Kind of like basically the properties of the malunggay seed can be used as a coagulant, which is basically something that could be used to separate the bad materials within the water. And it also can act as an antimicrobial agent. So yeah, that's just the scientific information for that. And the dose of the malunggay to filter water is 10 grams to 1 liter. And they've made studies saying that the malunggay seed is good enough to be like up to par with alum, which is another material used to filter water. Okay, next. Okay, so another thing that we stumbled upon researching is like the idea of a sponge city. So basically it's a concept in architecture where the city becomes permeable, so it will harmonize a bit better with the water cycle and prevent flooding. But since sponge cities are like a huge like urban plan project, this is more of us like just taking ideas from the sponge city and not exactly creating an actual sponge city. So so the value from the sponge city that we've read that we kind of want to use for the project would be the idea of like one of the struggles in sponge cities or flooding is yung wastewater management. So we're thinking of maybe some way of like helping filter rainwater, since the reason why it's bad in terms of flooding is because excessive flooding actually overwhelms the wastewater treatment of like the city, which causes that wastewater to contribute to the pollution in natural bodies of water. So yeah, basically we kind of want to like create something that kind of filters yung rainwater. Yeah, so filtering rainwater or at least managing it in some way, and also maybe mitigating flooding for people. So by elevating the structure itself. Okay, next. So yeah, this is just like a hierarchy because we decided to like like a hierarchy the programs of the building, and then the malunggay would, instead of it being on the ground, it's gonna be a roof garden now. So yeah, okay, next. So yeah, so far this is like our progress. It's not final yet. It's just a prototype and there's no walls yet. But yeah, the malunggay trees, the malunggay for the leaves would be on top, and then at the center would be the malunggay trees which is going to be used to harvest. That's where we're going to take the Malunggay seeds from. Okay, next. So yeah, so like one side of the building would be the commercial, and then on the other side would be yung malunggay trees on top, and then under that would be the himay or drying area, like where the saplings could be prepared, where the malunggay could be dried, where it could be like, you know, ripped apart and prepared. And then it's next to the cafe, so they're like in adjacent towards each other. And then under them would be the compost area, since a lot of like yung kitchen waste is usually used for vermiculture. So it could just be transported down there. Yeah. And then in the middle, there's gonna be like what's the term? Facility there for filtering rainwater. And yeah, the shape of the roof is meant to is to deliver the water to that machine. Yeah, okay. Next. So yeah, this is just this one's for the compost. So basically up in the area, the second floor where there's the himay or drying area, there's gonna be like chutes for composting, and then they just throw it down there at the bottom for the people working within the lower compost area to gather the kitchenwares and then distribute it towards the compost bins. And yeah, this is the cross section from the front of the building. And then, yeah. Oh, and in the middle, there's also like this balconies within the himay and drying area to help people take the leaves from the malunggay tree. Okay, next. And so the idea with the water thing is that since the drainage method used for the malunggay would be a drain tile, is that maybe the drain tile could be connected to some sort of downspout, and then it would lead downwards to help water the malunggay trees. So yeah, we're planning to expose it to play in with the creative typology. But as for the actual material of the wall of the building, that's something we're yet to decide yet. Okay, so yeah. Next.
So this is the Malunggay biofilter that's used for filtering the water for. We're going to have the dirt, the contaminated, the rainwater to be potable water, because there's a study that in rural areas in Philippines there's this implementation. So the biofilter is composed of gravel, sand, and crushed malunggay seeds. And this is our idea for our of how our filtering works. Like from rainwater, it will be caught at the catch basin, then it will be delivered to the water filter and the sink for providing clean water for drinking or for washing hands. And this is like an idea, like a revised idea that we actually thought of, pero yung parang revised ideas from the previous yung pinakita ni Antea. So we're deciding na the commercial building will be a circular thing, and the roof will be like a funnel for rainwaters, and there'll be gutters around it, like a catch basin, and there will be downspout, so like exposed downspouts for around the commercial tenants.
Wait, it's just because. Okay, so I think you need to tell them that this was just today. Yung part na to.
Just
Okay. Kasi like we weren't able to render it because it was like around during, what was it, 11 a.m. na tea thought of that, and then we didn't have enough time to like render it, and then we're just presenting it now because this was what we were thinking for next week. So we want to like get immediate feedback now. So just to save time and see if we're like going on the right direction. So yeah,
Oh, okay na?
yeah,
Yes,
yun na po.
Okay. Okay. Sige. Okay, hold on. Okay. Actually, you are on the right direction. I'm actually happy with the progress that you've made so far, especially when I'm looking at the drawings. Don't worry about the the rendering quality of the last slide because I appreciate the effort and the ideas you brought forward with the previous slides. Can we go back to those sheets like that? So for example, this one, no, you have the himay drying area and then the compost area. This is what we call, for me, in our process, like compartmentalizing the idea because you're just putting it in one zone. What if you make it a multi-zone kind of space or architecture wherein the cafe is part of the himay drying area so that they can witness the spectacle and the process of the drying area. But of course, you need to find ways. Can we go to the to the next slide? Like for instance, I'm looking at these pillar-like structures. I don't know what they are. I don't know what materials they are, but I think it would
Okay.
help. Huh? Sorry.
Sorry, I was gonna say there's supposed to be like shoots.
Ayun. So if these are going to be shoots, like what if you're having coffee and you're witnessing all of these things? This is what we were talking about earlier. If you remember Janil's work with, or probably Tracy's work, were in the columns are supposed to be a structural member, but instead she used it as a water collection system. So we are defining the elements of what known architecture elements are. Do you get it? So in a cafe, when you have this kind of systems, when you have this kind of composting systems, um, how do you create a cafe environment that has this kind of systems? So in a way, you are inventing the cafe by just making use of this composting facility. It's the same thinking as the water ski that the water ski the ski slope of BRK. It's a factory, remember, but he recognized the sloping part of that building, and then so he combined those two uses. So you don't have to segregate them. That's what we mean by creating a typology based on the systems that you are provided for. The first step is really to recognize how the system works, how you compost, and then recognizing in this, and you committed to that process. The two of you committed to the process by identifying that system, and then these are the things that you have. Now, what in these elements are usable for normal day-to-day activity, such as going to a cafe, shopping, etc. Siyempre, you need to recognize what is appropriate. You can't just force it. Do you get it?
Yes, sir.
Ayun. So, I would suggest, kasi this is very cartoonish, this will become more serious if you provide a base section that is technical. You know what? Like, you need to do a technical drawing, the piping, etc. And probably the piping can be the seating elements, can be, I don't know. So, so that way, you create that kind of environment as well, using the things that are used for this purpose, for this process. Do you follow, Maureen?
yes, sir.
Yun,
Piping, mga piping circulation.
like that. But doesn't have to be piping. Yun lang yung na-imagine ko by thinking out loud. It can be anything that is useful, that is used by this compose. Kasi can we go back to the previous slide? Kasi this one, you just segregate the Himay area, the coffee commercial, etc. So the Himay compost area is just a compost area that people won't visit, people won't appreciate. So what if you create that kind of that space wherein the pabrika or the factory is no longer a stranger. It's no longer a zone that people avoid because it is a factory. Do you follow?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yun. So how do you normalize these things? You normalize it by, introducing day-to-day activities with this kind of environment. All right.
Sir. Yes.
Okay. Well, definitely on the right direction, because the only way to do this is really to identify first the process behind it. Okay, but don't forget the yield of the crops.
Yes, sir.
All right, sige, good job, guys.
Yield.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, sige, thank you. Lance, Julian, you're next. Okay, kita na. Game.
Right. So, sir, yung from last week kasi we had medyo madami kaming ideas na very disconnected from each other. So, medyo tinabi muna namin yung ideas na for this week and nag-focus kami more on the overall program ng building and how the two typologies of the school and the textile recycling facility merges together. So we started by analyzing basically the stakeholders. So Lance, can you talk about
So
this?
for the stakeholders, we connected the two typologies, which is yung preschool and the clothing recycling facility. So how do we do it? First, we identified what they need and ano yung utilities to help maintain the facility, since we're dealing with the textile factory. So there are machines na hindi maiiwasan na we need to maintain. And then there's a boutique where people can sell their work, the textile itself. So here's the matrix which connects everything together. Next. And then this is the stakeholders and their activities. So knowing that, we created sige, explain ko muna pala. The activities, there are parts of it that is interconnected. So for example, the maintenance, the producer, the learning area, the working area, since workers and children needs rest, so preschools have resting areas. So that's kind of the point of our week now. So we were just identifying rather than going straight to the design. And next, this is the bubble diagram that we initially did for what we had in flowchart. So we can notice here that there are main areas, which is the classrooms, the tailoring area that binds it together. And there are two entrances. One is for more of the commercial area, and one is for those who are regularly using the facility, which is the lounging area and the workers sorting area using the hallway. And the dotted line represents a relationship between two spaces, but then it's not directly connected. So it's separated, but you can see it. So what we found with this problem is, even though it's some of its parts are meshed together, it's still kind of departmentalized. Compartmentalized pala. So what we want to do is, the next slide, is to mesh it together. But that's for next week pa siguro, sir. Since the point of this week is just identifying and visualizing what we have in our hands. Next slide.
And actually, I'll just add something. If you remember, sir, yung drying process namin from last week, we tried to design a way to make yung belt system or yung parang mga nakasampay na fabrics for drying. Instead of having them all in one area, we decided to just incorporate the belt throughout the whole facade of the building. So parang once it goes out of the washing area, parang lalabas siya, yung belt is lalabas siya outside the building, then parang mag-wrap around siya to different parts of the building. So I guess I'll explain more of that later. Pero uh, yung to start with our massing, we decided to put the location of our site here instead of dun sa market area, since this one is closer to the residential. But actually sa master plan namin, this was a commercial zone. So it's parang naisip namin na medyo bagay siya dun.
Yeah.
And also since since more of a marketplace ng area na to, medyo mas maingay siya. So since may preschool kami, we decided na this was a better location. And yung nakuha naming area is actually, it was too big for like the two typologies. So we decided to just offset it para dun lang siya sa side ng river. Pero yung front niya is most likely will be like probably like a receiving area or a plaza. Pero we haven't decided on that one yet. So we started by analyzing how the people moves throughout the site. So since most of the pedestrian is coming from here, probably since yung plan namin was there was a circular park, this will probably be an entryway to the building. So this, then it connects to the main road of the residential area. So we tried to make sure na may daanan yung tao doon. So probably this can be like a hallway going to the other side of the building. Then we also decided na we open up the building in such a way that it incorporates a vista towards the city hall. And yeah, so this is the kind of the floor building footprint that we came up with. And yung ginawa namin yung massing, this is how it went. We tried to incorporate a parang stairs na it's also a bleachers, so it's like a waiting area. Then it creates an entrance on the second floor, which we're planning to be the school or the learning zone. Then the machinery will be at the bottom, or more of the fabrication process will be at the bottom. Then to connect them all together para hindi sila separate buildings, we created bridges to create circulation. So may I add to balance?
Yung the point lang is of putting the machines underneath so that it's not a hostile environment or an too industrialized environment for the kids, and creating geometric shaped buildings according to our research with the pedagogy of Waldorf, that kids need to be in a place where it's not a box, so it affects their psychology. So I think we presented that research, pero we're gonna make another sheets probably for explaining why it's shaped that way. So yeah. So mas important din yung curved walls so that hindi sila naiipit. I think that that's why we created this non-sharp edged building. Okay, yun lang.
This is how we decided to separate the programs. This was based on the bubble diagram that we showed earlier. So basically we tried to separate the manufacturing process throughout the whole building, so parang hindi lang siya nasa isang area. So tulad nito, the clothes start here and the drying process, then yung, although hindi namin napakita dito, we wanted to create like a belt system that wraps around the whole building. So parang makikita mo it comes from here, then goes up here, something like that. But we haven't finalized how it will look yet. But like, yeah, that's what we're trying to achieve. The process na parang hindi lang siya isolated on one area. Then, so yeah, here's the machines underneath the classrooms, which will have a separate entrance. Then the classrooms will be connected to the sleeping/playing area, which is also close to the office of the teachers. And this part of the building is actually more of the quieter part of the whole building, since this can also be the boutique or like the showroom where the products can be sold. And yeah, may
Wala naman na.
okay. So this is an additional party that we developed for this week, and the idea here is that we wanted to create like a container system for the clothes, that yung parang raw material namin na clothes. So coming from the sorting area, basically isusort siya by color. So from probably red, green, blue, white, black, since they will be manufactured separately para iisa lang yung color ng fabric at the end. So parang the way we imagine this is parang mga cylinders, glass cylinders siya na nakahilera. So it will be like an architectural feature of the site, and we're planning to put it somewhere here, here on this part, since this is the sorting area. Then below it is the laundry area. So yeah, after siya is sort by color, it can be taken by the people at the washing area. Then after washing, it proceeds to the drying process. So that's basically it. Lance, yun lang ba?
So yung disclaimer lang is, after we did this, what we thought about is we haven't decompartmentalized the structure itself, so it's kind of separated in some way. So, and disclaimer lang na this is just for us to identify exactly how it works and what's the space needed. And yeah, so we had a lot of ideas, but then just sketches. So for next week, we're planning to blend it all together na. So ayan, it's not yet the actual building yet, just for representation and identification. And
That's our last slide.
Okay. Sige, I'm happy naman that somehow you know your standing, you know your position, maybe because you were also listening to the previous critique, and
Yes,
that's why you recognize and acknowledge the standing of this design stage. It's good that you are able to acknowledge it, because my next critique would be about, yes, it is compartmentalized, it's zoned, and if you're going to learn from the previous presenter, they try to enumerate first what they need to do, identify the entire system. So what happens is that you're doing it on a very conventional way by segregating areas, etc., and then zoning them, etc. We don't know yet what kind of possibilities and ideas that this facility can bring you, can introduce you. So it's too early for you to say that this place will be harmful by zoning them when you haven't really explored the different compartments. So what happens kasi is that you are just wait lang, somebody's calling.
compartmentalize.
It's very important that you know the entire process that you need to work on first, just like what the other group did. It pays to create a system or identify that system first, and commit to that, and then try to recognize what you can use with that system. So what happened now is that you zone different areas with an assumption, with a correct assumption naman, very practical, it's harmful for the kid, etc. But I think you're limiting yourself. So what you need to do is, kasi what happened is that you are, wait lang tumatawag ko lang. So what happened is that you have some ideas in mind because of your research, and then you do the conventional bubble diagramming or zoning areas, and then you get some ideas from those research and then put them as an ornament. Do you get what you know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
You need to understand the entire process of the idea first. If it's going to be about weaving ba? Sorry, I forgot.
Yes, sir. Recycling. So it's from collecting the textile and then grinding it into material that can be used as the raw material for making the weaving.
Like, for example, the BMW by Zaha did. She understood first how the car manufacturing or fabrication works first, and then she planned around it. Do you get it? Ang nangyari kasi, you try to separate all of these ideas together. You have to remember you're working with that very particular idea. Exhaust those ideas first. That is also the reason why I'm super impressed by the presentation of the high project that you had in design for. But this is the same process that you are applying again without really exhausting what you can do with an idea first. But I felt like you were in a panic mode in design for because it's already on the last stretch of the term. And then since you have the skill and you have the facility to design and you have the taste naman, no? And then you have the aesthetic sensibilities. So you're able to pull it off. But if we're going to talk about the process, if we're going to analyze it, it's really idea based. If the processing was really based on an idea, I'm not saying that this has no ideas. Don't get me wrong, because I hear a lot of research about Waldorf, and then those other ideas. But I think the process can be attacked differently, because otherwise it will be very conventional. You're just planning and then putting things on where they seem appropriate, wherein you're not really dealing with the physicality of the system. Okay, is that clear? Does that make sense, Julian?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sige. Anything else? Do you have any questions?
We were thinking about the one process, the washing process. So we're thinking of how the people are gonna wash those large amount of textile. So first we shredded it into strips, right? So we're thinking if we should use a washing machine because we did the party na it's a big washing machine, pero we realized na parehas lang yan sa washing machine sa department store. So how do we do it? Is it okay if we make the people wash it? Parang kasi sobrang dami. So parang you're gonna need a lot of manpower if manually made wash pala.
I think if majority of your ideas are not tech based, I think that's okay. Because I don't think it's also practical if it's not in our culture to do that. Just like how this place in India does it. So unless it's a provincial setting, wherein our mothers wash the clothes along the river, then it might be, but it's not the context that you are working with. So the machine is actually acceptable. But for the others, how the purpose of independence from the tech ideas is for you guys to exhaust the possibilities of the physicality of architecture. Kasi syempre, if you're not just going to depend on technology, just put a space and that's it. Do you get it?
Okay.
So I guess for that aspect, it's acceptable for as long as the other areas are done by the process of you are researching.
All right, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Who wants to go next?
Sir, can we go next?
Sige, go.
Can you see that, sir?
Yep.
Okay, so I guess first we just want to showcase the way we envision the resources within the site to kind of cycle around, because we wanted to like circle around and just be able to reuse the same resources over and over again. So we thought of the idea of waste equaling food, them being the same thing, in terms of how we can translate one into the other and the sources of where they come from. So we'll explain that more naman. Pero here yun nga. So same thing as last time in terms of the composting aspects. We just want to give more insight into it. So upon research, we denoted that it needs moisture, time, organic waste, both dried and not dried, and it needs a compost starter. So that being microbes, bacteria, which usually in places like India, they actually use cow manure, which they'll dilute in water, and they'll put just a tiny drop of that into the compost to introduce these microbes into the bin to eat away at the organic material. And it also needs, so external waste as its source from external waste collection so we'll be introducing the idea of collecting waste from the rest of the community around it, and internally generated waste, as well as dried water hyacinths from the Pasig River. So upon researching, we noticed that it needs a 1:1 ratio in terms of food waste and dried water hyacinths or dried leaves in general. So the need for this is to make sure that there's still space in between or like in the middle of the composting pile for air to get in and around. That way it doesn't just build up on carbon and it doesn't like smell bad. So by layering it with these dried matter, it helps it to be more I guess like friendly to be around. And then these are the different cycles or the different ways we'd be getting the material for composting. So external waste collection. So as stated, we'll be collecting from the community around it. So it'll be collected from others and it'll be sorted and then washed and then be turned into either composting and or liquid fertilizer to help grow the water hyacinths. But we'll talk about that also later. And the dried hyacinths collected from the Pasig River. So it'll be externally collected and internally grown actually. And then it'll be processed, chopped, it'll be dried for the composting process, and then internal waste as well from using the produce and water hyacinths that will be generated within the site. So it'll be cooked and or processed into food scrap. And these are just the research we did on general crops we wanted to grow within the site because given that composting is supposed to help breathe life into produce and give nutrients into it, we wanted to like further detail what kind of plants we'll be doing. So we chose these specific plants. So water hyacinths, onions, carrots, cabbage, garlic, lettuce, and tomatoes. So we chose them because they're all companion plants among each other. They're low maintenance and easy to grow. Their average harvest interval is about 80 days. So I think like around 4 months, give or take. And they respond very well to aerated water. So that's water that has like been agitated through surface agitation to introduce oxygen to the water. It helps the nutrients of the plant and it helps it grow faster. And then upon researching, we also noticed it needs a maximum root depth of 1 meter. So it's quite shallow in terms of its planting. And the minimum space apart in terms of growing it side by side is 15 centimeters, meaning that within a small space, we can actually grow quite a lot of it in one go. And then for water hyacinths naman, it's quite different given that it grows on water. So it's actually an ornamental plant native to South America, which is actually a globally invasive species. So we see that naman in Pasig River, but other areas around the world, such as the Nile River, actually experience the overgrowth of this plant, and because of which it seems to be quite problematic for people. But other than that, in terms of small ponds, people actually use it for decorations in their like ponds around their houses as well because it's actually quite pretty like when taken care of and maintained because the flower on top of it is gives off a bright purple color which like adds a lot of contrast to the surrounding plants around it. So it propagates extremely fast, as in like our research showed that it actually doubles its amount or the population with an area within a couple of weeks. And then the temperatures it can withstand 10 to 40 degrees Celsius, but is ideal at 25 to 30, meaning the Philippines temperature and climate is actually quite perfect for it, which is why the Pasig River sees like an abundance of it and needs like sunlight, liquid fertilizers, and nutrients. So this liquid fertilizer that we mentioned kanina will be primarily for the propagation of our own water hyacinths within the site. So we'll be doing so by collecting some of the waste, introducing a bit of it into like water, like within the site, in proportions of 1:20 from what we've seen. That way, it reintroduces nutrients to the water that can be absorbed by the water hyacinths. So it benefits of this plant actually, right? It can control and conserve environmental conditions. It can absorb metals like copper and lead from industrial sewage and living place sewage. So and it can be harvested all year round. So the plant actually has its benefits. It's just that when there's an overabundance of it, it can be invasive and can really harm the other plants around it as well. So as long as it's maintained, it's actually very good. And then we also wanted to show the times where each plant would grow throughout the year to showcase that all throughout, like every month, no matter the season, there's at least 4 different plants that can grow within the site. So given that we wanted to give away for the composting to lead to farming and then to the consumption of it and the experience of the people, we just wanted to showcase that using these plants would actually provide a lot of different possible combinations and or recipes to benefit the people within the site. So it shows that yeah, around there will be an abundance of it as well. And then in terms of eating the plants, so we chose them because they're common and essential vegetables in any household kitchen. They have a very versatile range. You see these vegetables naman in any and all recipes, I'm pretty sure. Like, and then we actually, well, I am like, quite fond of cooking as well, so I know about this thing called a mirepoix. So it's actually of French origin. It's their foundation or their flavor base for their different soups and foods. And all it really is sautéed or like fried onions, carrots, and celery normally. But our research showed that water hyacinths are actually edible as well and have a very similar taste and texture to celery. So we found a bunch of different recipes that showed that water hyacinths actually have a lot of benefit to people. It's very high in fiber, nutrients, and vitamins. So we'll be using water hyacinths as substitutes for celery within our like the mirepoix as an example within the site. So we just want to show that all of this is quite beneficial to the stakeholders within the site as well. And then this is the general experience of the people that will be using the site. So when we thought about it, we wanted their trash to actually be their quote unquote their key to getting in and around the site. So their first if they want to eat, for example, like what they do is they choose their ingredients. They'd farm it themselves or they'd harvest it themselves around the area, like near them, and then they can actually go to the different restaurants or stalls, give the ingredients to them for them to cook and prepare for them. That way, also in eating their food, they learn about it. They learn about the recipe, how it's made, what goes into it, and like how fresh the ingredients are because they can pick it themselves. And they also learn about agriculture, like practices, given that the Philippines is an agricultural country. So we wanted to like base it off that context. And then at the end, the food waste, whether it be from cooking and or their residual waste from eating, upon exiting the site, they can actually further use it to compost the different plants in the area so that they can give back to the area and can help out the next people that are going to eat from the plants as well. So we just want it to be experiential in a way that they can learn from what they're trying to get, and they actually feel like a sense of achievement in the food that they will eat or like the experiences that they will have. So here, actually, it perfectly shows you. Jazz, anything you want to add for this slide?
So this is what basically Carlos was explaining earlier. We just wanted to make a diagram on it. So basically, we had this idea of having a catchment, few catchment areas around the site where we would basically take people's garbage. Then later on, we'll explain how it works. But the idea is we're going to segregate it, and some parts would be for our composting. Some parts would be for we had this recycling. And we're also kind of working on this idea where if we could sell the recycled parts to other places, but the idea is we would yeah, get the garbage and it would go to composting, and then it would go to farming, and then from farming people could um pick up the plants, and then ask the people there to process the food or cook it for them. And then yung matitira would go back to composting. So it would be a cycle. And then we just kind of added the other activities in the site. We thought of this siesta idea, and for our other typology, which is the church. Um, so yeah, we were thinking of the cycles around the area, but these are all just the basic ones. It's not very dynamic yet, but yeah.
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 So when we talked about it, I just wanted to add na like when we talked about it, at least the way I envisioned it was because whenever I go out with my friends, usually like whenever we'll go out to eat, we'll normally do like an errand or two, like from what we personally need. That way it's like still efficient or like we have something to do while we're there. So we thought of how maybe not just us, but maybe people of different ages or the different needs that they have, they can even do in the site also while they're going to eat, for example. So like yeah, while they're in the way on the way to a restaurant, maybe within the site, they could might as well like throw out the garbage by introducing it into the site as well. So it's like a way to kind of bring function and leisure like in one, I guess. And yeah, we're still trying to find ways man to further emphasize that and to make it more inclusive for the different people within the area. But yeah. And then like this is one of our ideas we had. So this is like air ground floor, like sample lang of what it could look like. But we wanted to use platforms rather than just one solid floor to utilize movement of water and to make the different platforms like different sizes and different like elevations seem like water hyacinths. So we wanted to promote what it was about, given that our building has a huge emphasis on that plant. So we'll be having like these different platforms of different sizes, and the blue lines in between are actually like water to grow the said water hyacinths. So our first floor of our structure hopefully will be all about propagating the plant for further usage uh, on the second floor and above. So yeah, so we'll be talking about water circulation. It actually removes inorganic matter and substances from the water, as well as washes the waste for composting. So this primarily will happen in these corner areas, external waste collection. So that's where we imagine people would come into the site, for example. So they, if this was like the street here, they would come here and they'd dump their stuff here muna before entering the rest of the site and or like doing their other functions in the area. And then so yeah, water hyacinth propagation. The way it works actually is through fragmentation of stolons, adventitious roots. So it actually grows on its own. There isn't really much maintenance needed other than removing some of them quite frequently. But since the one we're using the plant for a lot of our functions within the site, then I think it's safe to assume that these plants will be removed naman quite often. And then water hyacinth as platforms. So yeah, it celebrates the plant, creates linear streams of flow for water circulation and propagation, and it also provides thermal cooling to give a better atmosphere and allow people to stay within the area longer. And here, so yeah, water circulation. So it's important that in introducing water into the site, it stays clean, especially that we're going to be introducing a little bit of waste into it to help bring nutrients for the water hyacinths growing within it. So we thought about how to do that, and the main thing is to make sure that the water isn't stagnant. So we'll be trying to find a way to make the water circulate, and we decided to do that by creating a linear stream, like on both sides, and then by having these like circular aspects as fountains. So surface agitation is actually a form of water aeration that further cleans the water. It introduces oxygen into it and helps it to benefit. It helps grow the plants as well while keeping its clear color. So this is commonly seen in like yeah fountains, no one like in houses and like even like uh fish aquariums. Like that's why there's like that fountain that constantly like circulates the water. It's to keep it cleaner for longer. So in doing so, it really helps us to make sure that the water isn't filthy or is still properly maintained for people to like enjoy as well. And then this is our other area. So in composting, since we need the water hyacinths that were grown on that first floor to be dried, we wanted to have an area that would dry the water hyacinths as well as be multifunctional so that the people could use it for other aspects. So we thought of having it as a food court area, dining experience, and like a garden as well. So the heat or the natural light that will be getting into the area would help propagate the plants and would dry the water hyacinths as well, and would like provide a nice environment or like open like bright lighting for the people in the area to denote as like public space talaga. So we thought about cohabitation between people and plants. So it's all about that experience that we talked about kanina, where they can pick their fruits or their vegetables in the area, bring it to the different stalls, have it cooked there, and then enjoy it in the area as well. So that's just the main idea of the area, but we'll be further like detailing it pa naman and stuff. Like this is just like a sample of what we wanted it to look like. And then we have these like small balconies, like right next to the like booth areas for them to eat in. We wanted it to further emphasize also like Jane Jacobs like eyes on the street idea. So we wanted to give them a secondary purpose of also like possibly watching over the people, because when we like to eat with a view also. So why not give that view a function of watching over the people as well, and making sure that no matter what you're doing around the site, there will be someone watching you. So it increases community activity and interconnectedness by boosting security and relations between people. And we wanted to make use of the full field of view of people. So looking up, you actually have 50 degrees, like, and then down you have 70 degrees, like from our research. And when we tried the conventional wall here, like it would like we cut it off here for the window, so it would just be here lang. But yeah, you don't really see things at the bottom. So we thought about pushing that outwards and making it glass entirely, so that you can see further down as well, and the glass would let light in more to help the plants as well. So these balconies would be used for drying water hyacinths or plant propagation, as well as yeah, the eyes on the street idea. And then it also allows this space here to be for privately for the people using the booth. So we thought of it as like possibly a place they can like put their bags down here, so that it doesn't block the way here and or get in the way of their legs when they're eating and like moving around. So we thought of it to be quite like all encompassing really. But the main idea is that it captures the full field of view of a person. And then we also wanted to cater to the elderly around the site, given that our city is supposed to be multi-generational. So we thought of doing so by uh, seeing how like in the different codes we have in designing a structure, a lot of it is catered to accessibility. So one of the things we noticed is that for wheelchair access, the optimal slope is 1:12, so that's quite far and lengthy. But we want to stick to that slope in terms of getting from floor to floor, to allow the elderly to even get through the site by themselves, so that they don't need that much assistance. And we thought of how to use that. So by using this ramp, we wanted to like kind of shrink down the floors. We want it to not be that tall. So we're thinking of around the height of 2.2 meters, around that or a bit higher, depending on like how we further iterate it. Or we want it to be that low. That way, from one floor to another, it's not that hard and it's not that long as well. So in our initial massing that we showed you, sir, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, we showed that we actually cut the structure in two parts, like by a huge valley in the middle, and this will be what is in that valley. So the two structures will have like difference in floor levels. That way, it'll be easy for them to get from one place to another with a height difference of only 1.1 meters each. So it really helps to make it inclusive, and it makes the facades like a little bit different per structure as well. And then Jazz.
Oh, this was the catchment areas that we were talking about earlier. So this is just kind of like the idea, the a diagram of how we would like how it would work. So basically, in this catchment areas, there would be coded recycle bins where people could throw their trash or garbage, and it would wala silang physical contact with the people inside. So like makukuha lang ng people from the inside or the staff yung trash nila. And then in that area would be the segregation area where um, people could see them from the outside, so they would see how the process of segregating trash works. And as said before, some parts of the trash would be for composting and for another part of trash segregation. And we were still working on the idea of like if we could earn from selling recycled materials. Um, but yeah, that's it.
Then,
And for this year, what we have been showing yeah to the class for the past weeks is yung how we would celebrate composting. And from our research, we had two kinds of composting: the anaerobic and the aerobic. From the last one that we presented last week is the aerobic one na naka-embed sa columns namin. Well, this one is for the anaerobic one with the Bokashi composting diagram. So for this one, sir, we have the idea of having a farming system on maybe sa rooftop or dun sa planting or farming area namin that are next to the kind of like the food court, the eating area. The idea here, sir, under that would be a natural water purification system that would lead to the water funneling. Um, and basically the idea is it would gather up moisture for the bokashi composting bins would be that would be airtight. And yung form ng bokashi composting bin so basically be covered with the envelope of the steel framing that we have presented last week. And the bokashi bins would be kind of like divided into the different age groups. So it would be kind of like catering to different age groups. For example, if I was a kid and I would throw my trash in this Bokashi composting bins, like I would see how much other kids are kind of like contributing to a specific Bokashi bin. Um, Creating like a system na this is your age group and this is your bin. Um, and we think that it would promote some kind of like interaction, social interaction, a positive social interaction. So basically, yeah.
and
Anything you
then
want to add, Carlos? Oh,
yeah, just to add lang, like, this portion here is like a water filtration idea. So you know, like from what we saw naman, or when we researched, it's actually possible to filter water through just like gradually smaller like rocks and or like pebbles. So it's like a natural way of doing it. So we wanted, I guess, the water to flow naturally from the top from farming. So it'll help propagate the plants, but the excess water will fall below it because it is possible to still drown out plants. And in farming, a lot of people actually do this. They had like these pebbles at the bottom to let water seep below it, and we wanted to make use of that. So the water would seep below it would fall down towards these envelopes, as he mentioned. So it shows that it's quite streamlined, and then the water would moisten the bokashi bins to propagate composting. And then yeah, the envelopes as presented last week, I think, would be covered naman in the plants that would also benefit from the composting. And then at the end of it, the water would lead down towards the water towards this area again for it to circulate and like be cleaned up like all over again to propagate the water hyacinths naman. So yeah, just want to add that for the, I guess, connectedness of it all. But yeah, that's it naman, sir.
Okay, actually, I appreciate the last illustration because I can really see the commitment to developing an idea. But this goes for everyone that, this is just one aspect of the exploration that can also be labeled as an innovation. So how do we push this further? I want you guys to step back a little further and see how the entire system works as a plan and how you can integrate new daily activities within it. And because what I don't want to happen is that you're just looking at one aspect of architecture, in this case, the column, or probably this, I don't know what this is. It's just a diagram. You're dealing it with vertically, so you're dealing it as a vertical section. What if you deal it, the composting system, as a horizontal as well? So that way you can really integrate how people move around, etc. I don't know yet. Maybe you have an idea. So that's what we mean by exploring it, so that it's just not limited on a vertical process. Did you get that part, guys?
Yeah, so we do actually. It's like there's one thing, but I don't think we mentioned, but I guess we were still in the works with it because like in this column section, I guess one of the main aspects was the metal framing that would be using to denote the Bokashi bins and would be lined by the plants. And we also thought about how it could kind of envelop the different columns and connect different columns to create kind of walls that aren't walls per se, but rather just they denote flow, and they like they wouldn't segregate or divide spaces visually, but would rather like allow people to explore the area in specific means.
Actually,
So like
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
no, well, yeah, that's basically it. Like, we just want to. We're gonna
Actually,
do that next week.
I'm just citing this because this is a good example of that, so that everyone can emulate it. But all I'm saying is that let's not limit it to just one aspect of it, one aspect or element of the building, which I understand, no, and I know that it's still under development, and I'm excited to see the next stages. But I want to just inform everyone that I don't need to see it just as one aspect of the building. Try to see the entire project as a system in itself, not just one wall or one column, etc. Like I said, look at it horizontally as well, not just vertically. So try to imagine. That's why it's the key here is that try to study the entire system first of composting. And I love the fact that you are talking about gravity here. And this is the best way to do it, especially with water collection, probably another project. But that's the easiest way to explain what we're trying to do here in questioning, in developing an architectural system. So this is a good development. So I guess I have no comment on the other parts because they are all good. I just want you guys to sort of push a little bit, no? Like I mean, it's going to be an innovation project. This is all good. Just plan it and then tapos na, no? But I want you guys to explore what else you can do and explore if you look at it from a um, different perspective, like a different approach, if it's going to be like the entire system. And then of course keeping in mind the day-to-day activities where these systems where this because this Bokashi composing diagram that you develop as a column, it's just one system, no? So try to imagine if you create an entire system, if you modify all architectural systems, so that will be really impressive. And that's really explorative. You're not just innovating just one aspect of a building. You get it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that kasi ang mangyayari yan, innovation lang. So kunyari may building, the building is recognizable, and then you just have one element there that looks very different, like a piping, etc. So that's just, when you say explorative, what if you change everything? You invent a new architecture. So you're just pushing it a little further. So Antea and Maureen, this is what I was talking about, is an architectural section, a technical section wherein the measurements are there, the thicknesses of the pipes are there. You're really committing to it, and who knows, probably those lines and those profiles can inform a design idea, like a sitting area, like a room or a cavity for a certain program. Do you guys get it, Maureen and Antea?
Yes,
So
Okay, very good. Sige. Do you have any questions, Carlos and Zacharias?
From me right now, none naman.
Okay, very good. Sige, I'm very happy with this development. I'm excited to see the next stage.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah, all right. So who wants to go next? Jericho and Martin?
Sige, sir.
Abigail and Mac.
Ay, kami na, sir.
Sila Jericho muna.
Ay, akala ko. Iba, no?
Next na kayo. Next kay kila Jericho. Para lang
Sige
ready
po.
na. And then, yeah. And then susunod sila Joanna and Justin. Okay? And then the rest, sila Bea, susunod na. Okay.
Kita na, sir.
Kita na.
Sige. Alright. So to start off, we were actually going for the fabric building starting this week. So we were going for something. So we were going for like the residential, commercial, mixed use building. But for this week we were focusing solely muna on the residential. So because of that, since yung sa public buildings, we were focusing mostly on religious communities and how like other communities would act toward that. For the residential, we actually consider yung important stakeholders, which are the people residing in the residences. So you had to consider the different age groups that are present, especially in Manila. So of all these 5 age groups that we distinguished, a majority of it are basically the youth, since they compose the 38%. So, so we were asking questions on ourselves, like in residences, how often do people work? How often are they away from home to work, or how much are employed? And how many children or seniors are within their residences? How often are they taken care of? Questions like basically a question that involves residences inside the residence and at times at working hours when they're out. So initially we started with like the percentage of children. These are like 5 to 17 years. So out of these 5 to 17 years old, 11% are working and 89% are not working. But this doesn't include yet like if they are including working and studying at the same time. And for the household naman sa senior citizens in Manila, 6.7% out of the total population are senior citizens. Then for the working class naman, 59% are employed, meaning these employed personnel, they work outside of their homes and they're actually paid by other people, or they're paid by other people, or they earn money through like service and sales, or they're managers, or they're involved in the industry. What's unemployed naman, they still how do you say, they still earn money, but in their own ways, like they are not employed by other people. So it's basically like product based on how they buy and sell. So kumbaga mga online selling, sir, yeah, that's an example of unemployed. So you don't really, so most of these unemployed people are parang home based lang sila. While as for the overworked Filipinos naman, I couldn't really get a specific data on Manila, mismo or NCR. The only one I found was regarding the Philippines. So 8% of the total population in the Philippines are actually overworked, and most of these people among the 8% are located in Metro Manila, NCR, or Cebu City, while as 80% of them are actually from the service sector. So although there can be like a lot of communities here that we could have researched about, but we initially chose like the age groups first because of their importance, like how different age groups can create a community within a residential. So we were focusing initially on early childhood. So these are basically 0 to 9 years old, and how they actually learn in spaces they learn through play. So initially, we actually went for the initial piece, so that's object play, which is meaning how they learn through given objects, and then secondly is early active play is how they perceive movement, and the last one is social play. So basically, as a kid, the most important way to actually learn is to kind of like imagine how you perceive things. So the important thing of early childhood among other people is their influence the influence of other people towards them. Because in this stage is how they usually develop your trust and mistrust against other people. So creating maybe the why we included early childhood is because of their importance, of how they develop, because of the society on how people influence them. And then the next age group we were actually going for was adolescents. So these are like 10 to 19 years old. So this is the stage wherein they actually have like a divided self. Like they become more social, but at the same time they become more personal. They need more time to self-reflect. But they need more time to parang make decisions for themselves, to be more independent. But at the same time, social groups also have like a big impact on them, because these social groups are what influence on how they decide things. And then for the next stage was actually young adulthood. So these are 20 to 39 years old. So the important thing about the stage is, since you're actually starting to be more professional, more work oriented, you tend to be more open. Like, you, in a way, you're forced to be more open to people, to talk to them, to communicate, to be more involved in society. And that's actually a critical stage, because it actually guides them towards yung next stages, which is yung middle adulthood. So for the middle adulthood stage, it's 40 to 59 years old. So this is the part where they're actually at the most experience, and they actually the important their important role in society is to actually teach others na. So this is where in the last part is called generativity. So this is where they actually extend what they learned towards the other younger generations. So in the stage is mostly focusing on how they can parang how they can parang improve their lives, so parang naging worth it. And at the same time, also assisting others like the younger generations in like how to lead their life. And basically the last stage is late adulthood, 60 plus years towards like 100. So teaching through integrity. So this, since they're mostly limited through movement, so most of their activities are limited, like stationary activities like reading, writing, drawing, etc. So what makes them important in society is, since this stage has the most amount of experience but the least amount of energy, they are important as like supervisors and advisors on how they lead the other stages towards life. So you may be asking, like, what's the importance of all these communities within a residential building? Well, before we go on to it more, so this is like our plan from ArcDes 5. So we actually identified all the kinds of buildings that we wanted to um like explore. So initially we went for the public socialized housing located in Ermita. So we made it public socialized because most of these residents are the urban poor. So we really can't we really can't make them afford like mga magagandang klaseng housings or like high-rise apartments. So what we did was more public socialized housing wherein the government can take care of them. And they're more closer to institutional spaces like the schools. Anyway, let me zoom. Like the schools, libraries, and other institutional facilities. Was as for the multi-unit residential, since these residentials are closer to the commercial and corporate spaces, most of the multi-residential will be like apartments. So medyo um parang mid-level mga workers na. And for the last type of residential that we were going for were public socialized apartments. So these were similar to public socialized housing, but more parang dedicated to most of like the government working officials or cultural working officials. I Francis.
Okay. So, yun nga, sir. As Jericho mentioned earlier, that kids learn better through parang interacting with their environment, and they also learn through play. And since kids love learning and playing around with their environment and surroundings, we came up with the concept of parang integrating a play space in a residential in the fabric of a residential building, or like a patch of public housing. And yung gusto namin dito is yung the parang meron silang option. So the importance of optionality optionality is the space is less restrictive, therefore allowing the natural flow of freedom and creativity. Yung example namin dito is the Anji Play in China. It is parang play-based curriculum na kids can do whatever they want, and parang they found out then na kids learn better through parang in a environment na hindi sila nakalock inside the classroom. And the next slide, please. And so we also wanted to inject the parang concept of optionality sa mga adults, since part din sila ng population ng Manila. And so we wanted to explore the idea of creating an open program space that basically people can use to collaborate or even just communicate with the people or the residents inside the building. And we wanted to do this kasi considering that buildings today are designed to parang maximize the space for profit, ganun, it tends to be very boring, given that once you exit your condo unit or yung room mo, all you see is doors and hallways. So there's very little interaction between the residents, and it feels dead almost. That's why we wanted to create a space that is conducive to activity. Next slide. And as a referencer, we used the book written by Yangel to show how important activity is between people. And in this book, he talked about the 3 types of outdoor activity, and he calls this activity life. Kaya the book is entitled Life Between Buildings. And he mentioned na when outdoor spaces are of parang poor quality, only strictly necessary activities occur. So yung necessary activities is like yung mga parang pupunta ng school, going to work, waiting for a bus, shopping, running errands, and lastly is yung distributing mail. And he also mentioned that when outdoor areas are of high quality, necessary activities take place with approximately the same frequency as the optional activities and social activities. And he also added na parang when spaces are built with parang high quality, and yung quality in terms of atmosphere and weather, pero he also emphasized that the physical quality of the space is still the most important. And so we consider that even though yung book na to is about public spaces or outdoor spaces, we can also apply this parang concept na into indoor spaces. Next slide. And so in this slide, sir, we basically want to show the parang basic building programming of the residential apartment building. And so we designed the space in relation to parang proxemics, and kasi we acknowledge that not everyone is fond of working in a collaborative space, or parang mag-share sila ng isang conference table with someone. So we added parang working spaces for people who wouldn't like to socialize as much, na depende rin sa mood nila. So in this way, we were able to provide for everyone that is parang included between the introvert and the extrovert spectrum. And next slide, please. This slide naman, sir, is parang how we plan to integrate the parang co-working spaces and the parang learning spaces for the kids. And so we exploded the parang the spaces in co-working, yung collaborative and intimate spaces for co-working. And we wanted to take advantage of the opportunity na nagawa ng co-working spaces na nagawa siya ng parang undulating surface sa taas. And so we wanted to take advantage take advantage of the dynamic surface sa taas and create this parang sort of ambiguous space that can serve as a learning space for kids. So it can be like basically a playground, pero hindi siya talaga playground. Pero it can serve as a playground, ganun. And considering that the space is also green, so we plan to make this a green space. It can also be used as a space for leisure. And I think that's it for me, sir.
So just to summarize, sir, we were the reason why we were going for like a co-working space is, first, we want, since you have like a bunch of different age communities within a building, we wanted them to be more interrelated. We wanted them to be more communicative in a way that they're all parang taken care of, in a way that there's a mutual benefit with all of them. And secondly, co-working space actually can boost productivity because you don't really have so much competition within a building. Like if you compare an office space compared to a coffee shop, you can both actually work there, but sometimes it becomes more productive in a coffee shop because you're not competing with other people who have similar interests. So in a way, you feel that whatever you're doing has meaning, and what other people are doing, like in work or in their careers, also have like a meaning or a contribution to society. So I guess that's our idea for like what we wanted for, or what we felt like what a residential building needs and how it can like benefit the whole community in general. Sir.
Do you have a proposal for the special building already?
Which for the fabric building, sir?
Special building. Sorry, I don't remember it.
Sir, yung landmark ba yun?
Yeah, yung last week was the landmark and the
yeah.
public building, sir. But you told us that we should like initially focus on the fabric, no?
Okay, sige.
Ngayon, this week pa lang kami
Because these are
nag-start.
just all ideas pa lang eh. So there's really nothing much to comment. There's really nothing objectionable about it. So let's see how you guys synthesize these ideas with the architectural systems. All right.
All right, sir.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Map.
Yes, sir. Wait lang.
Map.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Ay, wait lang. Narinig ba ako, sir? Ayan.
Oh, map.
Wait lang. Naka-share screen pa sila.
Oh, map.
Sorry, Pak.
Ano ba? Kinakabahan ako. Ba't
Sorry.
paulit-ulit?
Sorry.
Map.
Sir, chill lang. Ito na. Oh no, yun na. Kita na ba, sir?
Rumarino. Sige. Game.
So, I'll just show you muna, sir, yung parang last week na sheet namin kung paano kami napunta sa form na to. So, from this, sir, in-iterate pa namin siya to like much better for the plant, for our taro and clams. Kasi ito, medyo mukha siyang cheese. So, yung ginawa namin, sir, is yung mga holes na to is like we connected it more to expose it to sun, and like may areas dito na like covered siya for ano yun, like may certain stage kasi for clams and taro na needed to be covered. So from this, sir, so this area will be, yung area na paglalagyan namin ng taro and clams. Tapos we try to like incorporate floors lang para like ma-imagine namin siya as a building, pero we'll like change it pa, sir, to create more harmony from like the form, sir. So from this, sir, is ito yung like other side niya, sir. So ito yung section. So compare sa last week, yung mas less yung holes na to kasi mas exposed na yung na-carve namin. And so ayun. So from dito sir, so etong like na carve na to, like yung balak namin dyan is lagyan na siya ng like terrain for the taro and clams. Kung saan namin siya like ilalagay, kung saan namin siya ipaplant, and sloping down din siya kasi like yun nga yung idea namin is water cycling and filtering, so for the water to flow throughout sa area na to. So in order for us to like figure out like yung terrain niya sir is we base it on the like yung ano na yung word na yun? Like yung parang contour ng building niya sir. So from that sir makikita yung like kung saan yung flow ng water. So yung sa roof niya sir medyo since na-slant na namin siya to somehow make it parang water catchment, and medyo connected na din siya sa may parang carved area namin. So from here sir, naglagay kami ng terrain. So explain ko kung bakit ganyan din yung terrain. So kada area na to will be the areas for taro, clams, and ganun sir. So ayan, much clear siya. So yung flow niya is from here, iikot siyang ganun. So from here din dito. And so like yung for dito naman, like more mas zoomed in naman sir. Yung binabalak namin is like parang ganito siya sir. So medyo parang tinawag ng modular farming kasi yung idea nga namin is filtering and water cycling. So kung ginawa namin yung conventional type of farming, which is planting the taro sa soil and using mud para sa clams. So parang naka-cancel out yung filtering. So every time na mag-harvest, every time na like magpa-plant, alam mo yun, every time na ginagalaw yung soil, nadudumihan siya. So yung ginawa namin sir is modular siya. So per box sir, every time na kunyari i-harvest siya is like tatanggalin na lang siya, then i-replace ng parang nursery na tray. And also yung parang component niya sir is, so for the taro plants, instead of soil is leca balls, and then instead of mud, pwede din daw yung coarse sand. So from dun sir, medyo ginanya na lang namin yung like yung sa mga like sa terrain namin siya sir. So ayun sir, medyo yun pa lang sir, pero for next week more move na kami sa mas technical stuff.
Okay, this is not bad naman. So I like the modularity of it because I think it's very practical in a sense. But at the same time, you are marrying practicality and explorative, no? So this is a good idea for me. Maybe just want you guys to work backwards because I don't want it to have the same tendency as Lance, wherein you create a very interesting envelope and just you patch things with beautiful
Yes, sir.
ideas like this, no? So this is the time that everyone learns, including Lance, now time to step back and try to review the process because this process kasi is very conventional already. You design the overall form, but you're not explorative kasi ng creative topology, yung ideas talaga yung nasa center. So okay naman yan. Nandun naman yung ideas kaso nangyayari naging decoration lang siya. It's not really
sige sir.
It's not really something that controls the program, informs the program, etc. Okay?
Sige po sir.
But this is a beautiful presentation. Who knows if this might work? But step backwards and study it again. Okay?
Si Abby sir, mahina wifi. Kaya hindi nagsalita.
Sige, hi Abby. Okay, see you
Sa
guys.
province.
Okay, sige. Okay, who wants to go next?
Lang
Si
po.
Joanna pala.
Sir, I'll share my
Right.
Sir, can you see my screen?
Yep, very clear.
Okay, Justin, you wanna explain this?
Excuse me. So going back, so what we're gonna discuss today is more of a like what we've changed a lot so far recently for our nature reserve center, which is located underneath or near the Arroceros Park.
Continue already.
So I was saying, sir, is so what we'll discuss today is what we've changed so far. So talking about sudden, not really sudden, but changes that we've made for our not just the structure itself, but also the activities that we're going to add for the users to at least engage in, other than the being a research center, but other activities would be incorporated as well in um, the place and the structure and how it's changed that would at least help form on how the users will move. So
So for our presentation this week, we focused more on the facilities and programs we wanted to include. So the building, it's a nature reserve center as we presented last week, but we wanted to make it more community inclusive. So the first priority is the public access, and then we also included private access for different activities, which will be explaining later. And then the main idea is to promote nature throughout the interior and exterior of building. The three main facilities we came up with is the Tropical Research Center along with the Community Center. And then we included the ferry terminal because the site we chose, it's adjacent to the Pasig River. So for the tropical research one, since it's right beside the Arroceros Forest Park, we wanted to include different research facilities like laboratories for arboretums, herbariums, and along with a conference area for exhibits or meetings. And then there's also a library for the scientists. And then since we wanted it to make it more community inclusive, like what you mentioned last time, sir, we included different food stalls, a viewing deck as well to view different views of the forest as well as the river. And then we included restaurants. And then for the terminal, the facilities we included for the ferry terminal, there's the waiting area, there's the maintenance area for the boats, and then as well as a viewing deck to give different panoramic views of the city. Wait, let me show this one first. So for the spatial program of the nature reserve, we took into consideration the site first. So it's right beside the Arroceros Forest Park, which is on the left of the site. And then on the rear of the site, it's the Pasig River. So the ones that are highlighted with orange, we decided to make use of the nature facilities. And then the one on the right, which is highlighted by the pink highlight, it's for the community area. So for the nature facilities, we thought, what if we opened up the facility to those who maintain the forest as well as those who maintain the Pasig River. And then on the right, it's more open to the universities such as the University of Manila, and then different workers from the DepEd, and yeah, okay, this one. So for the bubble diagram, this is the bubble diagram of the floor plan. So the one on the left, it's for the ground floor. And then the one on the right, it's for the second floor. So the total area, it's around 4,600 square meters lot area. And so we decided to come up with this form because we wanted to give panoramic views of the interior as well as the exterior. So from, for example, different parts of the ground floor, you can see it, views from the ferry terminal, and then from the inside there, we wanted to include a garden park to promote nature. So on the left side, it's primarily nature facility. So since we included a ferry terminal, there's a boat maintenance area at the near the ticket booths and the waiting area. And then connected there, there's an office, there's laboratories, and then a library for the research facilities. And then on the right side, it's more so for the public access. So once you enter from the lobby, there's some plant shops, and then there's a gallery exhibiting maybe the works of the scientists. And then we included food stalls that are right beside the ferry terminal waiting area. And then for the second floor, we wanted to include viewing deck. So there's like a restaurant slash a river viewing deck right on top of the ferry terminal so that the community can enjoy the view of Pasig River. And then again, there's different food stalls and lounge areas for everyone to enjoy. Yeah, so that's the site analysis. And then here, so like we said before, once you enter, the community primarily enters from the frontage, and then there's also private access for the Araceros Forest Park maintenance. So whenever they're transporting research resources or whatnot, they can easily access the building. And then here, right beside the Pasig River, there's a ferry terminal that's also connected to different food stalls and plant shops, as well as a gallery to include the works of scientists. Then inside there's like a garden. Wait, Justin.
Just for like examples of the spaces that's possible that we would put in. So first would be community areas. We have like food shops. So I use stalls for an example. This is not like stalls in there, so it should all be indoors. But there will be also an outdoor tables for those who'd like to stay outside for grab quick fresh air and chill. So next one and will be the community area garden park. So other than encouraging people to engage outside and at least enjoy the view of not just the commercial and the research facilities, but also the natures that we're utilizing as well. So as mentioned, so we're adding a transportation hub, which is a ferry terminal, because what we found out is that there's a lot of ferry terminals across the whole Pasig River. So might as well take advantage of that as well, and not just only by giving them the chance to at least see the river sides as well, but also give them the chance to explore also the whole Manila if they would want to. It's like a gateway. Next would be the facilities. So it's right underneath or beside the RSRS Park. So it's somewhat like really separate that would separate them to the commercial and to the research facility, we placed it right beside the RSRS Park so that at least not only that they would have the view of the RSRS Park, but also it gives them the chance to at least stick beside it as well. So yeah.
So here's some perspectives that we did. So for this is mainly just the form. We didn't include the windows and openings at the moment, just trying to figure out where to properly place the openings for the viewing deck. So since it's right beside the Pasig River, we wanted to make use of it and place a ferry terminal, like we said. Here. So there's at the moment, two ferry terminals within the Lawton area. There's one in Escolta and then there's one in the Lawton area. But for our site, we wanted to include a community center so that people can actually enjoy the river without having to, let's say, use the terminal. So if they just wanted to view the river or study there while they're preparing for an exam or preparing for work, they can enjoy the nature within the building and enjoy the nature outside of the building. So here we wanted to make use of the multi-levels of the building. So I haven't thought about it yet, but I was thinking of maybe putting up a covered tent area for the food stalls on top, or maybe make it more open. But I'm trying to consider the climate of the Philippines, which is rainy and extremely hot and humid. So here where the people are standing, there's going to be food stalls or a lounge area on top of the building. And then on the one at the back, that's where the research facilities are going to be. And then on top, maybe put a roof garden for the people to enjoy. And on this one, maybe I can place a restaurant on top of it so that they can enjoy the view of the Pasig River. And then in the middle of the building, we place an atrium-like garden within the vicinity to promote nature from within the interiors of the building. And so that's what we have for now, sir.
Okay. You guys have a very beautiful presentation. I love the diagrams. I love the perspectives. It means that you can really complete the project. So probably this is my challenge for you, no? So I want you guys to compute for the saleable area and the non-saleable area to justify the design. Because like I said, as I reiterated last time, it's very easy to propose a very cool idea, a very rational idea, and this is what you demonstrated now. I have no objections about the referencing of the views, the Arceros Park, and the entryway, etc. Right now, we want to make this happen so that if in case this becomes a real project down the road when you become an architect, you know how to actually make it real. So how do you do it? If you have an AutoCAD, what you can do is get the areas of those that are going to make income. And then you need to deduct the hallways, the open spaces, etc. And then manage the 7 to 30% and then adjust the design according to those numbers. Okay? We're talking about kunyari this form, no? So how much of this is 70% saleable? How much of this is saleable? How much is non-saleable? And then you make adjustments, and that's it. We can already proceed with the finalization of the design for as long as you manage those numbers. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you have any questions, Justin?
Sir, so what you're asking about the saleability, are you asking for like a ano ba sir, parang table, parang a table, parang list of expenses and stuff like that that can be
No, no, no.
just
No, actually, what I'm talking about percentage of space. Like, you need, for example, hallways, staircases are non-saleable areas. So, you get the total areas, the gross floor areas of this design, um, and then if you have the total floor area already, you deduct the common areas because those are non-saleable, including the open areas, the open spaces. Your total should be 30%. It should only be 30%, the non-saleable, and then 70% should be saleable. Do you get it? And then you adjust according to that. Doon yung makikita kasi the reality of the practice of design, that you need to work around these limitations because you're not the one spending for this. If you are the financier of this, well and good. Provide all the open spaces that you want. But if I'm the financier, somebody's financing it, you need to meet the numbers that will yield income for them. Do you get it? So how do you marry this idea, still referencing all these views, etc., and then meeting those numbers? Do you get it? This goes for Jericho and what do you call it? Jericho and Martin. Okay?
noted, sir.
Okay, sige. Pag na-solve nyo yun, guys, yun, wala na tayong problema. Tuloy-tuloy na yan. Alright? Sige. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Sige.
Thank you, sir.
Alright.
Sir, can you repeat what you said? Sorry.
You guys are going to the pragmatic approach, right? So the pragmatic approach requires the efficiency ratio strictly.
Okay. All right, sir.
Ayun. So, yeah. So, Bea and Jao, are you ready?
Yup. Hold up. Oh, can you see the screen?
Yep.
Yeah, we can see it.
Cool. Okay. Where do I start? Okay, so
Yeah, that one.
today this week we tried to figure out like a general form or at least like a massing of some sort, and this is how we kind of ended up, and it's very different from like the ideas we were thinking from our previous weeks. So like from this form, I just want to like show like how we got to that form. So basically, we start from this map, and to see that we have like a weird lot, and like it's very long and it's very sharp, but it's honestly it's a good lot in terms of it seeming like it seems like a gate to the city, and it has lots of diverse diversity of like people. So I guess people that walk here are most likely different from the people who walk in Antonio Villegas Street. Yeah, and like and right next to it is the LRT, and then there's like a vehicular road over here. So this becomes sort of a this anchor point, or like this catchment area where everyone actually meet. So yeah. So from this, we kind of thought of a form like this where um, we deconstructed the idea of like a triangle and kind of spread it out everywhere to create like pockets of spaces, and the different heights, to create and from that we kind of stitched landscape to kind of create a more interesting, a more um, a form that kind of works well with the vista, the different vistas, and like our proposed programs and like bubble diagrams that we were trying to make last weeks. So where did we get the form? We got the form with like simple triangles like these, and we kind of use programs to kind of um, to signify the heights of the spaces and what we had to like extrude stuff. And for example, this would be a diagram of where we want the commercial emphasis to be. So this part would be the part where it's next to the road, the vehicular road, and we propose probably the parking area towards here, where this is tall enough um, to house maybe 2 floors maybe of parking, and then towards here we thought of adding maybe like a bus stop, and towards like the other red highlighted ones would be places where we could add the more commercial, the thing that sustains and that sustains a park. And we thought of this because of our idea, like having shops in the side, not really inside the building, because we kind of went back to our previous plates like last sem, and we kind of went back to this illustration of having like shops below the LRT, um, and we never actually developed this in our final master plan, but through this we're kind of revisiting that idea and try to apply it in our forms, and that's why um, this part of the space is much higher, and it's almost like a gate to the building itself inside. And like so from the commercial emphasis, we tried to like just draw it out like some of our ideas. This would be like in the pedestrian uh, road, where there's shops here, and then there's like a entry of landscape going up, and yeah, and and this one would be probably our proposed skate shop with the it's a recycling center that creates furniture for the space in here, and for the other shops maybe. And that's at the bottom of like uh it's kind of messy at the bottom of like bowls and like skating parks and stuff. And yeah,
Yeah, and we
then
thought
this would
actually
be
it'd be interesting to put
oh
the
yeah,
store under the bowl area because of what we talked about before, where we did want to show like the reflection of the skate park onto probably the architecture where it's like the ceilings or something like that. So where there's a recycling shop and everything and the production of the furniture, there's like the whole life cycle of the skateboard in this building. So yeah, that's basically it. Okay, ciao.
yeah. And then like and this part would be the part where we talked about reintroducing, uh, and this would be below the, I mean, next to the LRT line, where you'd see shops there that what we were talking about a while ago, reintroducing that thing, that idea. And then like even thought of like, what if this is a space as well for that graffiti thing that we're not really enforcing or making murals, but it just naturally becomes like this blank canvas for them. Yeah, and then towards here, um, this would be like the places where we'd want the people to skate more, and it from as it seems it's a bit like disconnected from each other. There's a It's not fluid, but that's the intention. If we go back to like the diagram here, of course we stitched landscapes to sort of divide different parks and their different uses. This is more in flat ground. This was more for skate park and stuff. It becomes that um, it becomes a more diverse um, typology, I would say, in which everyone would see everyone doing their own thing, and it becomes much more normal. And the space that is needed, especially, is for like skaters, is given to them, and that people walking don't have to be clashing with people skating, and that's one of the most important ones that we had to tackle, and was the conflict of like people walking and stuff. Yeah, and then so yeah, and this would be like initial drawings of like what it might look like, and having those vista points that I was talking about, having the GSIS over here and then the city hall, and having lots of different faunas and trees and stuff to kind of really integrate that park and the skate park style, because from our precedents, not just the ones we presented but the ones we just kind of studied, it was more on like an urban park where it's not really full of landscapes. It's more on uh, just a concrete pavement, like what you see in like those spots in New York, aside from like Central Park. Um, what we wanted is sort of um, that morphology of like concrete parks and paved parks and landscapes, so that we could introduce the faunas and floras that we're gonna present later on.
Yeah, and one of the main like complaints that we kind of were able to come across was that a lot of skate parks lack the shading or lack the cooling of the area, because yeah, as Zhao said, it's usually just pure concrete and everything. So with the ponds and the trees and such, it can provide like a really cool breeze for the area for the skaters to enjoy. So yeah.
Yeah, and like in that regard as well, we did have like an idea of have placing a huge canopy in the whole area, but we didn't really think that would be the best use of that way. And by just using the trees, it would create a natural shade, and maybe we could even implement trees in the bowls itself, like what we did last term. Because
Yeah.
these bowls that we um, placed over here aren't the final ones. We just kind of just used it to dictate the different uses of the space. And then like yeah, and this would be um uh this would be like a cruising trail located in here, in this part,
Yeah, the tip of the
where
lot.
yeah, in the tip of the lot. And at first, if we go back to our sheets, oh, I didn't download it. If we go back to our sheets here, um we were thinking of pushing back the bowl area um to the side, and I didn't think that in hindsight we that wasn't the best way to tackle the lot, because we weren't really thinking of the lot back then. And now that we have tried to like find ways to design in this kind of weird lot, we found that it could work to combine kids bowls and for more adept flat ground tricks in one area instead of pushing it back to another area. And from this, we kind of thought of snake trails. Snake trails are what skaters call for like cruising trails that are linear, and from that we could use this idea of molding landscapes and those trails to create a more dynamic um, trail that includes people just resting there and people just cruising there. And yeah, and this cruising thing, um, we got this idea from like just the the need for like people to to skate downhill. It's not really common for in here to use skateboards as means for transportation, and it's only best if there's a downhill um, slope. Um, and by adding this cruising trail, I think it would be more beneficial as a feature in our site, mainly because not everyone would like to do tricks. Not everyone would want to skate in the bowl. As for
Yeah, and
beginners,
yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
actually, when you were thinking of making the trail, we were thinking of the different types of skaters, like from beginner to intermediate to expert, because thinking about the people who are only starting to skateboard, like we were pretty sure that they wouldn't go onto the bowl completely confident. So then to be able to practice, for example, balance or being able to do simple turns and such, the cruising trail would kind of help master that as well. And also with just easily kind of being comfortable on the board itself, the cruising trails would help beginners like kind of hone their skill on skateboarding and everything. So yeah, that was it.
yeah, and I think based from this, like for the beginners, it is really important for to practice that just cruising part before doing like a trick, a basic trick, because it takes months or couple of months to learn the simplest tricks in the skateboard. So I feel like giving a space without the need of having or knowing tricks or having to risk your life will actually invite more people to try it out. So yeah, um, and this is what it kind of looks like. There's maybe ponds there, maybe different faunas. That's very different uh, from the others in some parts of the city. And then lastly would be where there's public emphasis, and these are the landscapes that we made. These are the also highlighted in the same area, the cruising trail, because we want to mix the people who cruises and who just want to sit there and like enjoy their time. And we also added like spaces just for them, and then yeah, and others that kind of overlooks the whole area, like over here, over there. And like from this, uh, we were thinking like this idea of having a movie place over there with a projector, and this came from the idea last week of having this thing that we designed, and having um, a ramp that is sort of embedded in the architecture itself. And and from this we kind of iterated it to what if this opening was much lower, this ramp was not too high, it was more of a mini ramp. And going back to our drawing over here, if that was implemented in this area, it becomes more of a skate spot as well, where people could, while transitioning to different spaces, could skate towards there and have a bit of fun going to different spaces. Yeah. So
Okay, so for this one, it's mostly like the mapping of the vegetation at the top area because we realized that, yeah, when considering putting plants on top of a building, we have to consider the roots of the plant, and we needed to know what types of plants we wanted to place on top of the area and kind of mix them together to be able to create a very well, technically just a garden that is able to work together and kind of create a very easy to maintain system and stuff, and kind of also be able to benefit the aquaponic system that we wanted to include in the area. So yeah, as you saw in the diagram that Jao showed earlier, like the one on the left side is grass that people would be able to climb and picnic on top of, because we really did want to have the building be very informal in that sense, where there's no single entrance, where people could actually go from either side of the building and kind of get onto the park and be able to feel very welcome in the space. And also, since that area is facing the site of the Manila City Hall and the GSIS building, it would have been like a very perfect place to introduce and invite picnicking and such like that. And in the B area on the top part, that's actually where we thought to put the aquaponic system, for the main reason of looking at our sun diagram analysis, where the sun there actually is not so intense whenever it's kind of the hottest time of the day, because like with the plants being able to cover there, and also the shading that it comes from the LRT station as well, it kind of allows for probably the soil there to maintain its moisture and everything. So then we wanted the wetlands to be in that area, and it also was like a perfect place to have like a pocket lounge for those who'd want to be able to kind of experience the landscaping while still being able to watch the bowls, like the activities happening in the skating bowl area, as we showed actually last week, where we did want to kind of invite a seating area to be able to witness the activity going on and all the skaters going around without having to completely directly interact with them, but then still provide the view for people to, yeah, be able to watch and such. And also for C actually is an entrance that we showed earlier. It actually slopes down to the store entrances where it's under the LRT. And we thought that would be a really great place to provide the aquaponics water distribution, because as it's sloping down, it still allows the proper flow of the water to be able to distribute the whatever plants that we would choose to be placed in that area. And we thought that it was really important to have places specifically for aquaponics and have places that are not for it, because we realized that the space is actually very big and only a limited number of plants can actually filter the water properly without taking up too much nutrients that would go back to the ponds where the fish are. Because yeah, the plants are normally just like a filter of all the nitrates and everything, like the waste that comes from the fish. So then it would be a natural way to maintain the water, even though there are still processes where you'd still have to probably filter out solid waste for anything, but then it kind of is able to naturally filter it. And so yeah, D is similar to what we wanted to do with the A area. And for F, it is more or less the same, but then yeah, similar to D, it kind of slopes up to the area, as you may have noticed in the diagram showed earlier. The entire lot actually for our building kind of slopes from the left. I mean, like from the lowest point at the left to the highest point at the right here, because we did want to have like a space that allows for a natural way to cruise along the entire space. And also for letter G, where there is also like a green roof and everything. So we did really want to invite like a lot of like to maximize the spaces for landscaping so that people could be able to roam around the area and kind of experience really great views within the space. So then with this green roof, we were kind of thinking about what kind of plants you'd want to include there also because of the weights, the roots and everything. And for H, which we wanted to consider to be like a wetland as we showed in the illustration before where we wanted to place ponds for natural cooling and possibly the palm trees and everything, just mainly different plants that we will show later. We felt like this was very appropriate for the space because of what we mentioned before, where like the origin of skate, where we kind of wanted to bring us back there, where they would be skating along like a body of water, where they would possibly hear the sound of the aeration of the water, where it's like trickling of water and everything. So then it brings back that aura and everything. So yeah. So other than a wetland and pond, there would also be like patches of trees where it could be like a forest area where it would invite also pocket lounges in the space because besides being a cruising trail, it doesn't really maximize its use if we don't invite other people who don't skate as well. So then we really wanted to do that too. So yeah, I think we're done for this side. So yeah, for the plant directory, we just collected a number of plants that we might want to be able to put into the space, considering being a habitat for fish and also its benefits to the system as a whole. Because instead of kind of creating very technical systems like using machines and everything, or even using resources outside of the entire system itself. Like we wanted to be able to really choose these plants specifically for the benefit of the fish and the people, and also that are able to easily maintain in the area. And yeah, next. So yeah. Well, with the duckweed a while ago, I forgot. Like that's also like food for fish, so then that also kind of benefits the system and kind of helps for the shading, even though like the pond's not completely shaded by trees even. And also, this is the flora that we wanted to put, the flowers that we might want to include in the space that does help with the benefit of the fish as well as the aeration of the water, because aeration happens not only because of like the bubbles that you put in the water, like from the trickling of the water that kind of breaks the surface tension of the water from the surface area. The plants being able to be planted in the pond itself kind of helps that as well. And next one. And then this is mostly for like the landscaping. Possibly we were just thinking about like choosing things that don't really need that much maintenance, as well as like the roots not needing to be too deep. So then we were really looking into how much space it would need, so that we'll be able to use this for our more detailed massing later on. Next. And then this is more of like the ground cover that we wanted to use for the area that is low maintenance and very subtle in a sense, and kind of benefits the place as well. Like on the bottom right plant that we kind of showed, it is actually a plant that is very versatile, that is able to grow very well on soil and on the water, or nearby the water where it's very humid or very dry. It's very tolerant to these type of things. So then we kind of wanted to consider this as well. And also like for the ground cover and everything, as we mentioned before, we did want spaces that people could easily just climb on top of and be able to picnic near or on. So then, yeah, we felt like these stands would really be great for that. And yeah, I think that's it for our presentation today.
Okay, so can you just give me a moment? I just need to check something. Are you guys there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sige. Actually, I like the presentation, except that I am not seeing the process that I'm needing to see in order to progress. Because what I'm seeing now, although I'm not saying it's wrong, is that the conventional way of designing interesting buildings, wherein you create an envelope, you create a form, and then you patch them with good ideas. So it's like an attachment. You have a form, and then you put on one side because it makes sense to have a graffiti there on one side, because it makes sense that you have a, a roofing, etc. But there's no synthesis of the systems that you are supposed to be studying, such as the skate park system and the planting system. Yes, you had research about it last time. You had extensive research about it, but it's not being used now. You sort of this set it aside, and I'm not seeing a development of that as the center of this very idea of a building. So what's happening is that you create a library of this research, and then just put it on this form. It's really detached when the form is supposed to be the form that you are presenting now is supposed to be informed by the research that you created, because the research will inform the science behind it. And how do you create a skate park system that applies all of this knowledge, and then that will inform the architectural form, and then see uh, how you can integrate it with day-to-day activities. How do you normalize these ideas to become part of the daily programs? I'm not saying that this is wrong again, but if you're going to do the creative uh, exploration process, that is the way to go. Because otherwise, um, if you decide on this direction, then I will have to demand for the efficiency ratio, because this is very conventional. Like, we see a lot of gardens on buildings now. I was in SM Aura the other day, and it's a rooftop garden. The only difference is that they just need to introduce a skate park. They just need to introduce a graffiti wall. They just need to introduce an aquaponic system, and it's similar to a proposal already. But if you talk about a building that's all about people skateboarding, it's a different banana. And then integrating the daily activities. Do you get it? Do you know what I mean? Do you get what I mean?
Yes, sir.
Yun. So again, you decide. But if you take this route, I mean, I'm not stopping you from doing so. Uh, you need to compute for the efficiency ratio and then adjust it accordingly. Okay? I mean, this is already innovative, but it's not explorative yet, because you're not really fully exploring that idea that you are proposing. Does it make sense to you guys, the difference?
Yeah.
Yun. So I hope you're honest when you're saying you really get it. So but you can message me anytime, just in case you want more clarification. Okay? So again, wala din man to mali. Just that if we are going to do the creative exploration typology type, then yeah. What happens kasi, this is like another iteration of what we're seeing today. The buildings that are already existing. Garden rooftop, and then you just basically rearranging it based on the conditions of the site. Uh, but not really exploring the question of skateboarding as a typology that will inform the typology. It's just basically a feature, a special feature of this building. It's like you go to a mall and then it so happens that this mall has a ice skating rink and it makes it so special. And that's about it. You stop there. So what if this ice skating rink informs the entire idea of the building? You follow?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so that's good. Again, this is not wrong. You can pursue this, but you need to add this efficiency ratio. Okay, so let me see how you approach this challenge next week. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, sir.
Who wants to go next? Dalawa na lang.
Sir, me and Janelle will
Okay,
go.
so go ahead. Go ahead. Yes, yes, yes.
Seen already. Okay. So for this week, we focused on continuing our model for the mosque and starting on our fabric building. So we just wanted to show our progress for the mosque. So this is our progress so far. Next slide. As we continued modeling, we also incorporated the idea of the water circulation party, which would affect the ablution area in the mosque. So in this diagram, you could see that from the water from the rice paddies would be filtered and would slope down through the roof, which we sort of use the aqueduct system into our roofing system so that water would flow efficiently. And then from the sloping of the roof, the water would flow downwards from the back wall, which we also had another idea to incorporate an algae wall system, since we researched that algae walls usually further filter and purify water, so that once it enters the ablution, it would sort of have this falling water effect. You can see in the bottom right illustration, which we're still trying to incorporate the idea of step wells and terracing into the minor details of the structure. So this is still an sort of an abstract diagram of the idea, but we're planning to incorporate this fully around the walls of the ablution area. And yeah, you can see in the bottom left corner the flow of the water that we're trying to incorporate. So after this ablution, it would go to the fish pond, which would be around the structure, which we will incorporate next week probably. Okay.
So yeah, for this week we sort of focused on the fabric building. So the fabric building that we sort of chose was the shop houses, which is located along this strip in our zoning. So we sort of studied, we further studied the tropical Chinese shop houses usually seen in Singapore and Malaysia, and we sort of noticed how they were using air walls to
moderate the thermal environment and allow for a sort of passive cooling system. So if you look at the pictures here, this area allows air to enter and then passively cool the rest of the house.
I wanted to add lang that the reason why we were researching about that was because we did mention last week that we wanted to incorporate similar aspects that we applied to our mosque to the fabric building as well, such as air wells and terraces and plantation systems. So yeah, that's the direction we're going to. Thank you.
So from there, we sort of made a general floor plan. So we have the shop area, which incorporates a restroom, a kitchen or storage area, depending on the type of shop, and a garden, which would be the open air well. So that area is the sort of the public area, while the more private areas is on the back of the first floor and the second floor. So that's where we'll have a staircase to the second floor, which open into the bedrooms, bathroom, and a terraced laundry and plant cultivation rooftop. So we wanted to be able to incorporate not only the flow of water, but also the production of agriculture in each shop house.
Also, we added a sample massing since part of the concept of like having terraces and step wells as like the basis for our form is to to provide like efficient water flow throughout the structure. So whether that be from the rooftops or to the stairs for irrigation and other activities such as laundry. Also to sort of create a dynamic form that could be flexible and change depending on location and type of shop whatsoever. So
yeah.
You go first.
Go first, ja.
Okay. So when we decided to, like, one of the reasons why we decided to pick the shop house is because we wanted to still emulate the sense of Filipino within the city. So we were looking into the standard the sari-sari store and how sort of lacks the space, like the sort of interactive programming of spaces which could invite the Filipino more. Other than that, we were also thinking about different iconic street foods within that you could see around through like carts and vendors such as sorbetes and taho, and how we could potentially provide a typology for those types of street foods and change the way these typologies are conventionally seen as of today. So one of our like sort of inspirations was the way when, for example, when you go to Japan, each shop house has a unique food or a product that they'd be selling. So from one shop house to another, it's a completely different experience. Other than that, we were looking also at the Sampayan culture in Manila, not just so that it just to incorporate the fullness of the Filipino culture in the city. We also thought it would be a good idea to incorporate the terrace concept to act as the sort of balcony experience that could hold this laundry system, plus maybe incorporate the agriculture system in order to create a more celebratory experience as you walk through like the streets and look up at the shop houses. So yeah, these were some of our bases. Next here. Also, since we were still sort of we're stuck at the moment with the types of systems and programs that we could incorporate, since we're not sure whether or not we should be incorporating more creative types of topologies, because as of the moment we're basically creating more like restaurant types for street food vendors. But besides the point, what we did have wanted to incorporate a system that mimicked our water turbine system in our city. If you remember, sir, like we had a water turbine in our rivers to make the waters active, and so we wanted to incorporate that also into a structure. So in a sense, we listed like the flow of how it would potentially look like. So from the water collection from the air well, it would lead to a potentially new type of food service system that's more hydraulic, where the active flow of water would sort of make the experience of food service more dynamic. And then that flow of water would lead to what could be used for laundry and the sampai culture, and would lead to the hydroponic system and the plumbing. So the water really goes through the entire structure. But as for like the actual architectural fabric and incorporation of these ideas, we're still unsure of. But yeah, those were the basis of our ideas. Do you want to add anything?
Just to add, so we felt na this system would work really well, especially since in general, hydroponic systems already require running water. So by since it's already an existing system, by further like incorporating a new possible food service system, we'd sort of be changing not only the experience, but also like utilizing the already existing system to sort of benefit the entire structure. That's all, sir.
Maybe my request for the first set of slides for the Mosque is to again work backwards how much of that was the idea. Maybe create a slide showing that demonstrating that the system of or the process of the cultivation, and then as a bubble diagram, as a vertical bubble diagram showing how the system works, and then just to demonstrate that the system and how you are synthesizing it with the Mosque typology. So try to imagine like a vertical bubble diagram showing the irrigation, etc., and then another vertical diagram showing the Mosque, and then probably the third slide how they are meshed together. Do you guys understand?
Yes, sir.
Because you need to demonstrate that the idea of the Mosque typology, and then the idea of the system that you are proposing. In this case, this planting system. All right.
Okay, sir.
Yun, that's it. Then we can just finish this, and then for the fabric, yeah, you don't you decide if you want to push for a typology for it, etc. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Sige, thank you guys.
Here
Tracy.
we have a question.
Yeah, sure.
About the fabric building, because to what extent should we be like delving into the process of, is it going to be the same as the special buildings?
Yeah.
So for example, like if we want to focus on a particular, since we're trying to delve into like street foods, do we like pick a particular type of street food and just sample on that for one fabric building?
Yeah, you can do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Just one probably workable. Get to know the system, and then that process, and then again the shop house typology, which is great. And then how does the shop house typology of the Chinese in Singapore, no? Or I don't know, evolves into a street food, Filipino street food typology. That will be very, very interesting.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Kevin and Tracy.
Yeah, sir. I'm just asking Tracy if she's ready.
Hi, sir. I'm just gonna put the last two sheets. Okay lang, sir.
Do you
Pero-
want me to try screen sharing?
Sige, ikaw. Yeah. Hold up. So I'm just adding the last two sheets. Upload. Kev, did you screen share na?
Setting it up.
Sige.
Sir, kita ba?
Hmm? So, kita po ba?
Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. Can you see it?
Naglo-load. Ayun. So, sir, I'll just going back to the what was presented last week. This is just the location of the site. It's by the bamboo park. Can you go to the next? It's along the area of the golf course on the northern side. So this place we were the character diversity is actually going back to the character
Sorry.
diversity. Oh, you know what? I'll share na lang. Parang mas mabilis yung sa akin.
Sige lang. I wanted to try lang.
Sige.
Sorry.
Okay lang. On lang. Can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Okay, mas mabilis.
Mhm.
Hi. So, given the context of the city, it's the character is a tropical city. One of the critiques that Sir Jerry said last time is how can we bring water to the park? And that sparked a lot of questions to Kevin and I.
Yeah.
So using the elements and what is available in the area, we actually thought of understanding the users. There was actually a study that shows that by 2025, 2030, the elderly population will increase from around, at the moment it's around 8%, and then by 2025 it will go over 10%, and slowly it will continue to go up, that Philippines will slowly transition into an elderly population. So this is the anthropometrics that we have for the elderly people. These are local data, some a little bit mixed with other anthropometric data from other measurements from other Asian countries. So going back there, the idea was to revitalize the bamboo forest with some sort of rainwater collection so that it could grow, and connect these spaces like for physical therapy, how it could help in improving the mobility of elderly, since these people have the tendency to have more problems as they age, especially when it comes to movement flexibility. And the idea of the obstacle course actually came from, well, the rainwater collection at first. Usually what like my previous iterations from Arctis 4 was that it's some sort of arch or like a pipe that um a huge umbrella that collects rainwater. And I thought of like what happens if you bring this structure into a bamboo forest? Will it
Yeah.
become part of like the canopy, like a canopy of trees or something? Can people use it as spaces to visit or have activities? And one of it that I was reminded of was the idea of obstacle courses. And usually these are used by people who are able, people who can move and of young age. So what happens if you combine these ideas of creating this somewhat physical therapy with the being aware that the users are not usual able-bodied. These are people who have mobility problems, majority the elderly, and create architecture that also responds to the location of the site.
Yeah. Tracy, if I can add lang.
Yeah, go lang.
So, kasi what we had last term for in mind for the bamboo forest was sana to make it not just a forest because it's a large land, and then that has paths for people to move, and then that also led us to um, the direction of studying, like what Tracy said, the movement and mobility of uh, not just the able-bodied people in the park kasi malaki nga siya. So how do we also make it another experience for even the disabled and the elderly?
Yes. So we went through studying, well, first yung bamboo forest. What is the best way to allow a person to experience like the spatial and of course the psychological and physiological effect? Apparently, according to the study by Lynn, that the best experience is actually when you look at the bamboo forest like externally. It's kind of at the edges, because when you're in interior space, it's kind of tight, and baka something might pop out there out of nowhere, and it's very isolated. The forest path space is actually kind of in the middle, so it kind of acceptable. It helps in wayfinding, but externals, the forest external space of bamboo is the best out of the study that was shown there. So we kind of studied So this will kind of dictate how we will put the structure with the bamboo forest.
Yeah.
And then oh no.
So in return, parang yung bamboo forest namin last term, medyo mag-iiba pa siya to accommodate, well, not really accommodate, but create a better environment then for the typology that we're doing.
Yes, sir. So these are the like a rule of thumb that we could work with regards to injury, kind of collecting the anthropometric data, then abstracting it to the movement. So there's like various equipment that's being used like to assist mobility. And of course, there are actually different heights for example, this staircase thing that's used for therapy. They try introducing the elder people first with steps that's around 140 cm and then go down, or it could be reversed as that they would be able to adjust to a higher rise. So
these are typical
therapy,
ways
yeah.
on how they do it today.
Yes, and then there's also other some people who still has trouble standing up. There's actually a contraption that could help assist as they walk along a certain path. There, it's kind of like a crane, and then usually isolated. These movements are isolated in one space. So what happens if you allow them to go around like an area? Another thing, connecting with those research, a lot of therapy spaces, they're usually done in one room. So yes, it helps for improving the mobility, flexibility, and strength. But then it's isolated to a certain space. A lot of wasted space, which is the transitional spaces, liminal spaces, it can be very it's a missed opportunity to actually let there be some sort of um interaction with other patients and making use of these spaces rather than leaving it as something somewhat dead spaces. And of course there's still a need for special rooms still, but if you're able to maximize the area as well as these liminal spaces, it will you get to use more of the area and more interaction with the other patients. So as mentioned a while ago, like what happens, yes, with the interaction of nature, and there was also a study saying when you have things a little bit higher in terms of height, it kind of makes what do you call this? The person more activated must know there's a little bit stress, but not too much stress, just enough to feel that they have to move. Because with elderly people, you cannot make them way too relaxed. They might not be able to finish the course, or parang hindi nila matatapos. So the thing about these kind of obstacle courses, there's like a sense of accomplishment, so that there's some sort of destination rather than just a room that is within a space in a normal physical therapy room. So those were some questions, and then one more of the other the other effects of having to be with nature is it reduces anxiety and relaxation. So there should be a balance between those two. And then to show how we gone through the form finding process. So like how can we create these canopies somewhat be part of the space, like the forest area? And there was some iteration, like what if you introduce more of these nature's how nature is with different elevations, how will it follow the form? And then there's still so much more to explore with regards to detail, which like we've been talking about, like what happens if you put holes on the floor, or on the base of these posts, which also helps in the rainwater collection, so that there's more water collected for the bamboo forest.
And then, given that there's like bamboo everywhere, one thing that we also talked about was studying the rainwater collection system more in relation to bamboo and how since people are going to be distributed around there, how can we also create uh, the circulation in relation to the physical to the architecture that the physical therapy users need. Parang if kailangan ng rainwater ng piping distribution, how can that be related to the railings of the physical therapy users that they need as they go around? So parang
we're still
nagsasama sila.
integrating that to the idea, diba, Kev? But yeah, this is more of the form exploration, how this can somewhat give a space for these elderly, like even the distance between the rainwater columns, they cannot be very far, because these people they're going through like some sort of therapy. They need rest spaces. So if you could see, there's this detail where you could pull up like a chair on the side, so in case that person is tired, or like some areas. So parang lagi may platform. It cannot be, it's also similar to obstacle courses. You cannot tire the person out. Although it's not as, as I guess higher risk as to obstacle courses that are for like people who are more mobile. These still kind of simulates it, like an exploration of it. And then so
yung distances of how that the elderly need prior to resting, pwede rin kasi siyang related to the amount of rainwater collection, what do you call it, columns, or
the rainwater columns.
those, how much of those we need given na sobrang laki ng bamboo forest.
Yes.
So
there could be also other iterations where it's a standalone, where it could now turn into a social space, like maybe not just for elderly, it could be for able-bodied people. Although our design is mostly focusing as of the moment are these, like this population that's gonna be projecting by 2025 onwards. So because of its shape, it's kind of like it's kind of like a grid form that you could connect. You could potentially just populate it and make it easy to put it around. So the gray areas, this is kind of the roof and floor plan. So we could imagine that this is gonna be full of bamboo, and like as the study suggests, do not it's best if it's within the extents lang makita nila. And then the reason why the other side isn't populated, there's also possibility of connecting these spaces of action, like other areas for therapy. So these are, let's say there's annexes for the building A, building B, and then you connect that. So there's some sort of destination to go through. But there's also, you could also enter from the like ground floor just to walk across. So so there's different ways of circulating to the space. And then well, that's all we have for the idea of the special building, or the that we're going to be populating. There's some that
can you
which one? This one?
the model
The
model with the platforms, the one she did.
Shoot, sorry.
Okay.
Okay. With the platform.
Yung
zoom in, or this one?
The elevation one. Di ba meron yung may...
The second one. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, parang yung sinabi namin, sir, para sa special building. And then we were also thinking kasi na pwede, kaya siya mataas because like Tracy said, the bamboo forest can go up to, what's that, 20, right? Tracy? Hello? Hello?
Hi, sir. I'm back.
Nawala ba ako? Or ikaw?
Ako nawala. So
Okay. Sige,
sorry.
sige. Go lang, go lang. So, ayun, going back to what I was saying, like Tracy said, di ba parang mga 20 meters yung
Yeah, the height of
more
the
or less
bamboo.
maximum?
Yeah, maximum.
So,
And
possible rin kasi maging landmark itong bamboo forest from just being a simple forest, di ba? And then, pero yung limitations ng bamboo forest on the ground kasi is yung bamboo lang yung makikita mo. But if we bring them up with the reasons that Tracy stated, parang they can also overlook the city. And then it will also welcome more tourists sana. So ayun, that's all I wanted to add. Trace? Okay, nawala si Tracy. So, habang while Tracy is not yet back, yung slides na ipapakita niya, ayun. Yeah, the next slides she's gonna show is us dipping our toes into a fabric building. Yeah. Trace, are you there?
yeah, I'm here.
Okay,
Oh, fabric building. Sorry. So sorry.
Yeah, it's just like the start of it. Right?
Okay. So the fabric building, we still because we're focusing on a tropical city, we were trying to, as much as we can, stay with local precedents as what we did the first time we presented on the third week. And then still kind of relating, we tried relating the forms also quite similar to what we did 2 weeks ago, and with the current what do you call this, special building. So it's kind of, we were kind of redefining also the ideas of arcades, and how can it create some sort of variation to make the area, well, beside to cut the monotony and add some sort of special element to it. And then we're still looking forward to how can we integrate it with the, still with the idea of rainwater collection, or like possibly urban gardening, mostly towards the facades, because the areas that we chose is quite tight. So there's not it's more of the the vertical aspect of the urban farming or gardening is that we're gonna explore. So kind of relating it to the build the exploration we did for the special building towards the fabric building. So there's some sort of consistency to the identity of the city.
Alignment. Ayun, that's what we have, right?
Yes, sir. Yes. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, it's not bad, but it's just that it's not very creative exploration type, so it's okay if you want to stick with this. But again, like I said, I need to see the efficiency ratio of your proposal. I want to see it's on the plot of land with the percentage. Okay?
So how about
Yeah.
this one, the exploration for the
I mean, having a viewing deck on a, what's that, a tree or a
So it's the deck on the top is where the path of the physical therapist, physical therapy, right, Tracy?
Yeah.
Gonna be in.
Yeah,
So-
potential for that. But I need, like what I asked sila Janil, so that you can prove that you know what you're saying. What is the study showing that this pathway is gonna improve on the therapy? So that idea, bubble diagram idea of that, how is elevation gonna work? If you have the bubble diagram vertical, and then yeah, basically just to demonstrate that putting them at an elevation can actually help in the therapy of the patients. So kasi this is the finished product, you need to work backwards, step by step, show how the solution is helping. They have a study. You already started with diagram showing studies, no? But I need to see proof that putting them at an elevation is ideal. And what are the vertical things again? I missed that part.
the vertical, this one, sir?
Yeah.
Go Kev.
Oh, so kasi Sir Jerry last term, sir, was asking us how will the water be supplied for the bamboo forest? And then the direction we took was these rainwater collection systems that the
Okay, hindi create lang ang
Ayun,
diagram vertical. So this is a potential for that, no? So yeah, but I think just supplement the missing link regarding those volumes, and then probably inside those volumes, you can still explore more. I don't know. Yeah, so
Yes, sir.
okay.
Sige,
Alright. Thank you, sir.
Okay, sige. Thank you.
Sir, I have a question lang.
Yeah.
Kung parang ano siya, special or landmark building, I guess, in the bamboo forest, do we still need to provide like the salability if it's a?
No, it's already on the explorative type. No more na.
Okay.
So more on the fabric building, sir, if we haven't explored it, we have to focus on the salability like the other projects, sir.
Yeah.
If innovative,
Okay.
pragmatic.
All right. Yeah, because these are just early stages na parang we want to somewhat connect it to the forms para there's some sort of identity. Pero we'll explore it more.
Kasi, you are you like sila Janil, they are referencing typology, the trap house typology. So it's the same case with you guys. So you're marrying those old ideas with new ideas.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
so
sir.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah,
So
thank you, sir.
Idrius,
Thanks, sir.
It's your turn. Last but not the least.
Sir, kita po yung screen.
Kita. Go ahead.
So for this week, we decided to change our location for the fabric building so that it can be accessed easier by the citizens. There will be no more obstructions in the middle of the circularness part. It will remain untouched as of now. So next slide. Next. So, these are basically recap for the last week. All we did was to enhance the layout so that they will match the other layout of the presentation. So for the process, we started with the massing evolution. We extruded it in a form in such it aligns with this road and it connects to the Manila City Hall clock tower. We wanted to create a bridging segment in this area in order to create a pathway that divides the massing into two in two buildings. So another part of the process is planning the building use of the fabric typology. We wanted the commercial area to be outfitted in this place because it has the easiest portion of the access regarding the pedestrians and it also and people can enjoy anything that's suited to them. Next is the office area, which is now in the separate building. We wanted office to be directly below the plantation typology, so the access will be quick and easy, and the workflow will not be disrupted. For the plantation typologies, these are initial form, not yet final. We decided that the stairs will be roundabout until you get into the top. And as for the diagram structure, this is the initial form in which in our party will be placed, which is here. But we will still add a lot of holes, pipes, and anything that affects the building because of the party. So for this party, we base the typology in the form of the various holes and the hole at the center. This based on the context of our Circulenus plan, which is this circle represents the park and it goes away and splits into all directions as if they are beautiful vistas. We wanted this segment to be accessible to anyone and in an easy way. So we started with this process. We started creating various holes and beside it, we place two soils in which the plants will be placed. This the first model, and for the next process is with including the plants and how they will work out. Especially if a rainfall occurs, they will strike down the plant, converting it into purified water, as confirmed by the cilantro plant, which can cleanse the water and convert it into purified. They will slide down here into the hole. And so far, there's no one yet. We're still planning in which they will go, but are the hole in which the purified water will fall. They will fall in different floors in which the purified water can be accessed by the office workers, providing liquid for the consumers. So they are split into different floors. So this is the complete process of the party, which is placed on the top of the structure. In this party, The white represents where the rainfall will fall. They are there to support the plants so that the water can fall down in these holes much easier. And in the center, you can see that there's a big hole, which is a different thing, as they are based on the utility part of the party. They will fall down, and they are there to provide suitable for the water tanks and transmission to the Circulenus city. So this one is connected to different parts of the city. This hole, it has a pipe that goes all the way down the ground of the city. So for this initial plan view, we decided that it will be 5.35 meters long in terms of diameter, which is already enough to fit in the structure at the top. And this second image shows the holes in terms of top view. So these are initial parties and progress so far.
Okay, thank you, Adrius. No, don't stop sharing. I actually appreciate the party that you develop. Can you? Okay, where does this circle happen? Sorry, I missed that part.
This one?
Yeah. Saan yan nangyayari? In your building, where does it happen? Because you presented a volume earlier.
Here. Dito ba?
Yeah,
Here, sir.
so focus on that building. Can you have a massing earlier? Can I see it again? There you go. So where's the circle there?
Sir, we're planning to place it here in this.
Okay. Sige. Okay yan. Kasi, sige, develop this na. And then, if it is going to be commercial offices, then I need to see the plans. And then make sure that later on, you also tell your group mate na I'm going to ask for the computation of saleable and non-saleable. All right?
Yes.
Sige. So I want to
we'll try to create plan.
Yes,
next
yes.
week.
No, next week para at least after that next step, tuturuan kita paano hanapin yung 20 yung percent.
Efficiency?
Oo, tingin ko marunong ka na naman eh. Just in case lang.
Na-calculate na namin ni Jacob Layog last term eh.
Nice.
Meron po kami.
Sige. Hindi.
Mga 60 something.
I'm talking about this building. Okay.
Iba po pala.
Oh, iba pa.
Yes.
So ngayon, so with the innovation, this is innovation yung party mo eh. So compute natin ngayon yung efficiency. All right?
Yes, sir.
O sige. Yung special building, meron ka na bang proposal?
Wala pa po, sir.
O sige.
Focus muna po sa one.
Sige. All right. Okay na. At least nag-move on tayo. Nag-progress tayo sa fabric building mo. So good job.
Yes, sir.
Floor plan ha? With structural ha?
Yes, sir. Column, yes, sir.
Sige. Good job. Okay. Thank you, Idrius. So, everyone, thank you for the time.
Sir, wala po si TJ. Hindi po siya
nagpaalam siya sa akin.
available.
Okay. Sige. Did I miss anyone? Baka may nakalimutan ako. Wala. I think everyone is was covered. So again, thank you for the time, and I hope learn something, and then I hope I see progression next week, and I hope the difference between innovation and exploration are getting clearer, because it's very hard to explain. You can understand it,
yes, sir,
objectively, but the moment that you're doing it, so it's very hard to measure. But now I think it's getting clearer. All right.
Yes, sir.
Okay, sige. Thank you guys. I'll see you guys soon.
Sir.
Okay, bye.
Thank you, sir.
Cheers.
Goodbye.